Are we ready? We are going to go on an adventure today. So let's put on our binoculars and our vests. Got our pens to take some notes. Our camera's ready. Let's test it out. Okay, are you ready to find out what animal habitats is all about? Great. Let's go. Okay, so remember, we always talk a little bit every day about what we're going to be learning and what kinds of things you're going to tell your parents. Guess what I did in class today? So these are some of the things we're going to go over. So we're going to gather some information from both print, which means like books, and digital sources. So on the computer, we're going to take notes on the sources, and we're actually going to be building something. We're going to report on a topic or text, tell a story, and we're going to do that in our journals today. We're going to do descriptive details. Now remember, descriptive details, that means you're going to actually be describing things in your journal. And again, we're going to show evidence at a particular habitat and some organisms that survive in that habitat. Don't worry if you don't know what all these words mean right now. That's okay, because that's what we're going to be learning. And a couple other really lots of words here that are very important to learn, but we are going to just show how we're going to go and learn all these things. Okay, class? So, thumbs up if you're ready. Let's go. Okay, so what are we going to do first? We're going to understand the meanings of the vocabulary words essential to this lesson. We're going to identify the various habitats. We're going to discuss the differences in habitats and what all animals need in order to survive. There's going to be three main ones we're going to be talking about today. You're going to want to make sure you take these notes down, because all these vocabulary words and what we need for a habitat, for animals in a habitat, you are going to be tested on later. So let's remember that we need to write some important words down. We need to make sure that we are putting our thinking caps on. We already have our discovery hats and our glasses. So let's go on. We're going to be constructing a habitat. Remember, I told you we're going to be building some things. Today we will be building our own habitat. We'll be breaking up into groups, and we're going to use what we've learned in today's lesson to construct our own habitats. You guys are going to be really proud of yourselves today. I know I am. Okay, first things first, let's take out our journals. Everybody have their journals ready to go to the next page. Thumbs up when you have your journals. There you go. Okay, now first question is going to be, and I'm going to leave these on our board so that you don't have to memorize them all right now. So let's pay attention. Let's go over them. And let's see. The first question is, what is your favorite animal? Where do you think your animal lives? What does your animal eat? And in those 10 minutes, you're going to get 10 minutes. We're going to put the timer on. We're going to have our timer manager start the clock when I say. And if there's extra time, you're going to draw where your animal lives. And maybe a picture of your animal too. Okay, so that's only 10 minutes, not very long. So start thinking. While I tell you a little story about what my favorite animal is. My favorite animal is a lion. Has everybody seen Lion King here? So lions are big, very curious and sneaky animals, but they're brilliant. They know how to camouflage into their surroundings to be able to find their food, and they're very, very beautiful. They're found in a habitat known as the savanna, and we'll talk about that today. And my animal is a carnivore. That's another word that's going to be part of a vocabulary that you're going to be learning about today. So a carnivore, just to give you a little hint, is an animal that eats other animals. Who likes cheeseburgers? Yep, that's kind of like a lion too. Okay, so we're going to get our time manager to start the clock. Are we all ready? Pencils in hand, and in 3, 2, 1, time. Okay, class, getting ready to wrap up our journal time. Now, when we're all ready, I need you to clap 3 times. Everybody, clap 3 times if you're ready. Okay, now, vocabulary words to remember. Now, remember, I told you that we were going to be learning some very important words that were going to help us today on our exploring of different habitats. Now, these are going to be very important words to remember, not only as we move on into this lesson, but also for our test and as we move into more lessons in our science. Okay, so first things first, a habitat. Habitat is the main word that we're going to be talking about today, and that is a natural home or environment where an animal lives. Okay, so are we animals? Yeah, we are animals. Now, you may not have known that. Some of you may think just say human, but humans are animals. We're also known as mammals. And we live in a home. We live in a house. Most of us live in a house or an apartment. And we live in a street, right? So that's the environment around us. And so animals as well have their own habitats. And let's see, for example, Mrs. B lives in a house in California. Can somebody tell me what kind of weather we have in California? That's right, mostly warm weather. So, to protect Mrs. B from warm weather, we go inside a house and we stay here so we can remain cool, right? Also at night, it gets pretty cold. So Mrs. B and all you students sleep in a house to keep yourselves warm at night. So in that same sense, animals do the same thing. They need to find homes that keep them safe, that keep them from being attacked by other animals. It keeps them warm or cool, depending on what kind of animal and climate they live in. Does anybody want to tell me what climate is? That's right. Climate is a weather around you. Okay, so we've learned that already about what a habitat is. We've learned what climate is. Okay, so we're going to move on to an environment. We've talked about environment before, so we're going to touch on it a little bit again. It's circumstances, objects, or conditions by which one is surrounded. I talked a little bit about weather. That's one of the circumstances. A house is our shelter. That's the environment that we live in. What else is nearby? Right? Is there oceans nearby to get food, like fish? Those are kinds of things that we have to take into consideration. Animals also have that same thing they have to consider. Shelter. Again, shelter is protection from the different environments around us. And camouflage. Can anybody tell me what camouflage is? Kind of like the army. What, like the army colors that we see. Okay, so camouflage. It's a kind of a difficult word to spell too. Mrs. B misspells it all the time, so we're really going to practice on spelling it so we can be extra, extra, extra smart third graders. Okay, here we go. Camouflage is a disguise to help with the survival of a species, right? So a disguise, like a costume. Let's think of something. How about a lion, Mrs. B's favorite animal, right? Okay, it camouflages because its skin and its hair is tan. Now, it lives in the savanna where there's lots of grasslands. That's the same color or similar to the color of the lion. So it's able to sneak through the grasses really easily without being caught. Okay? Adapt is another word, which means modifying according to the circumstances. So when we're cold, we adapt by putting on a jacket, right? Animals have to adapt a certain way too. And you'll see some examples of how animals have adapted to their environments, whether it's in a hot area or a cold area. They've all had to adapt to their own environments. A couple more things to know are herbivores and carnivores. Now, Mrs. B told you a little bit about what a carnivore is. It's an animal that eats another animal to survive. Okay? And herbivore, if you think about it, herbs like plants, so animals eat an animal that eats plants. So we're going to move on. Now that we know some of these vocabulary words, don't worry, you will be given these words to study and take home to memorize, so that way when you're going to be taking your test, you're going to have these all. Perfect. Ready? Let's move on. Okay, so today there are so many habitats, but today we're going to talk about 4 habitats. And these 4 have some pretty cool animals. So I picked out these specific 4 habitats just for you, because I know that you guys are going to think these animals are just as cool as I do. Okay, so again, let's go over. Can anybody tell me, read to me what a habitat is? Perfect. Natural home or environment where an animal lives. Okay, so here is a big star that you have to think about when we talk about habitats. Okay, this is going to be on your test. This is going to be how you build your own habitats today. When we are talking about habitats, there's 3 basic needs for animals to survive. You ready to listen? Food, water, shelter. Those 3 things have to be present for animals to survive in a habitat. We can't have only food and shelter and no water, and we can't have water and shelter and no food. All 3 things have to be present in a habitat in order for an animal to survive. Like us, right? We need food and water to survive, and shelter to keep us safe from the elements. So remember these 3 things as you're constructing your own habitats today, okay? Again, food's going to be very important, herbivores and carnivores. And also there's another word known as omnivore, and that's where they eat both animals and plants, okay? Shelter is protection from the elements, like we discussed, rain, snow, wind, sun. Those are some climates that we're going to be coming across. And then also, there's several types of habitats, like the ones seen here, like I reminded you. But today we're going to talk about these 4, because I thought that these were the coolest because of the animals. Here we go. Let's go into the desert. Okay, so we got our binoculars on. Everybody put your binoculars on. Let's see. Now, let's keep them on. While I tell you a little bit about the desert, you're going to be looking around and trying to see what could possibly live in this habitat. Okay, so the desert. It's an area that is extremely dry, very little rainfall. They're found on many continents, but not all are hot and sandy. The Arctic, does anybody know where the Arctic is? It's this really cold place. And yet, it's a desert, but it's a frozen desert. Another cool thing is that deserts have rivers flowing through them, and one of the most widely known deserts is the Sahara Desert in Africa. It's hot every single day of the year and can reach over 130 degrees Fahrenheit. That's way too hot. That's way too hot for me. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about some animals that we can see and a characteristic that can help it survive. So that when you're building your own diorama, you're going to see, oh, wait a minute, I know what we can include because this animal can survive in this habitat. So let's see, kangaroos. Why can they survive in here? Because they need very little water and can hop over large, vast areas for food. Can you see those kangaroos hopping along? Hop, 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 hop. Antelopes. Have you guys ever seen an antelope? It looks like a huge moose, right? They have flat hooves with flat soles so they don't sink into the sand, right? Because there's sand and they need to be able to step easily. So that's another animal. Okay, now wolves. Wolves are really cool animals. And these desert wolves in particular have large ears so that they can release the water and the sweat. It keeps their blood nice and cool so that they can survive in this hot element, okay? Lizards, they dig, 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 dig. Can you see them? Can you see them with your binoculars digging, digging? Take a picture. Somebody take a picture. Hurry. Good job. Now, they hide in the sand to keep cool and also to hide from predators and there's little small prey that they can eat themselves. Also, scorpions is another one. Has anybody seen a scorpion? Yeah, they have that sharp tail at the end. They don't need a lot of water and food to survive. Now, I did say we all need 3 things. What were those 3 things? Can you guys tell me? Right? Water, food, shelter. Great. Okay, so these animals in particular, scorpions, they do still need water and food, but they just don't need as much. So they're able to survive for a long time without a lot of water or a lot of food, which makes them perfect for a habitat like the desert, okay? And last but not least, I'm sure a lot of you, does anybody have a snake? Does anybody have a snake? Okay. Keep that snake at home because I don't like them, but they are cool animals because they can camouflage in their surroundings and burrow in dens to survive the heat. So they're pretty smart that way, right? Let's move on. Okay, now this is one of the biggest habitats, right? It's the largest one, in fact. The largest animal habitat on Earth is, can everybody say it? The ocean. Okay, the oceans cover 70% of the Earth's surface, which means there's a whole lot of animals in this habitat. They live at different depths from the surface of the water all the way down to the very bottom where we can't even see. Some animals spend their whole lives in the water while others can go in and out of the water. We're going to talk a little bit about those animals. Okay, so instead of our binoculars, we're going to get our snorkel gears on. Ready? So let's take a look to see what we can find, everybody. Okay, so dolphins. Dolphins are warm-blooded and can regulate their body temperature even if the water is cold. Fish get all their oxygen needed to survive through the water. Mrs. B, how is there oxygen in the water? Because water has molecules of hydrogen and oxygen. So even though we think of the ocean as just plain liquid, there's actually some oxygen in there. We'll be talking about that in another unit, okay? Whales hold their breath underwater and then they use their blowholes that we've seen to breathe in and out. Seals have slick bodies that enable them to do long dives. Has anybody ever seen a seal before? Or at an aquarium? They're really cool. They're really fast. And they like to show off. Now, crabs are one of those animals that we talked about that can live in and out of water. They have gills that help them breathe. And all they have to do is keep them down. So every once in a while, crawl into the water, come back out. Hang out on some rocks and enjoy the sun. Now, jellyfish is one of my favorite animals. And did you know that their skin is so thin? Thin, thin, thin. I mean, that's why we could see through them. That they can absorb that oxygen through their skin, so they don't even need lungs or gills. It just gets absorbed. Sea turtles have webbed feet and flippers to get them around. And starfish, spiny skin. And their spiny skin is not only to fight off the predators, but also to camouflage to their surroundings so that they look just like rock and they're not eaten. Okay? So, okay, let's see. Now we've got a lot of information. We've learned about 2 habitats. What have we learned about? Which habitats? Right? The desert and the ocean. 2 big habitats, very different. One's very hot, but can be very cold in the Arctic. And the other one's very, very huge, and that's the oceans, right? Okay, so now with all that information we have, we're going to take a quick little break here. Ready? Let's take a quick little break. Thumbs up if you're ready for a little break. It's joke time. Okay, so let's talk, since we're talking about animals, let's do some animal jokes. I'm going to say a couple jokes, and then if you guys have any animal jokes, you let me know. Okay, and you're welcome to use these on your brothers and your sisters and your moms and your dads and your grandmas and your grandpas, whoever you think is going to love this joke, okay? Okay, so how does a lion greet the other animals in the field? Anybody want to guess? They say, pleased to eat. Pleased to meet you. Okay, now, what kind of jungle cat is no fun to play games with? Anybody want to take a guess? That's right, a cheetah. And last but not least, we're going to do one. What do you call an alligator who solves mysteries? An investigator. Okay, are we ready to move on? Everybody got their giggles out, or we have our mental health break. Feel good? We learned about the desert, we learned about the ocean. Now we're going to move on to some more habitats. So let's get going. The polar region. Can anybody tell me what they think the polar region is going to be about? Yep, that's right. It's going to be about coldest places on Earth. It makes it one of the most difficult places to live in. So these animals are going to be very unique. Now, this is another fact for you guys. Animals that live in the polar region have white fur or skin to help them blend into their environments. One of the most well-known polar regions is Antarctica, which is surrounded by a giant sheet of ice surrounded by frozen oceans. So let's talk a little bit about some of these animals that survive in this habitat really quickly. Penguins have tightly packed feathers to keep them warm and for waterproofing. Bears, like polar bears, have 2 coats of fur and a thick layer of blubber, which is also fat. Deer have guard hairs and trap in heat. Arctic fox have thick furs on their paws, allowing them to walk on the snow and ice. So it's like having little sweaters on their feet. They don't get frozen. Okay? Hares, also kind of like rabbits. They dig through the snow all the way down. Again, another digger. Digger, someone take a picture. Hurry. Great. And they look for different plant species below the snow. And narwhals, these things are really cool looking. Ever seen? They look kind of like a unicorn in the water. They have a tusk that sticks out really straight and sharp from its head. And they rely on their tusk for eating, for finding their food, fending off predators, and their color camouflages to that Arctic water. Okay? And last but not least, today we're going to talk about the savannah. Now, I picked this because it was Mrs. B's favorite animal. That's right, the lion. So we're going to pick the savannah today to talk about because I think there's some pretty cool animals in the savannah. So let's look. Back in our safari gear, we got our binoculars back on. Ready? Rolling grassland with a few scattered trees and shrubs. The largest savanna in the world is located in Africa, and almost half of the continent of Africa is covered with grasslands. And also the savannas have dry and rainy seasons, and it can rain up to 20 inches. Let's see, that's about 20 inches, okay? And there's all kinds of herbivores and carnivores, so they all live in this really cool place called the savannah. So here we go, binoculars up. Giraffes. Giraffes drink water when it's available but can survive for weeks without it. Zebras have stripes so they can camouflage, right? Along the long grass. Gazelles, they're able to shrink their heart and liver because the breathing loses water, so if they're able to shrink it, they don't need as much, right? Lions, their tan skins allow them to blend in with their environment like we talked about. Leopards can climb trees and take their food up there so that nobody else steals it. And also cheetahs have the large claws that allow them to hunt their prey, but also to run fast through the savannas, making them the fastest on Earth. Now, if there's any animals like gazelles that you have never seen, or narwhals like we talked about, we're going to have a chance to look these animals up to see what they look like and decide if this is what they're going to be part of our habitat, okay? So, without further ado, here we are, guys. We're about to start our group activity. So, I'm going to have your table leaders come up. They're going to pick a name out of the hat. It's going to have the habitat that you will be assigned. Now, let's go over a couple of the instructions. You're going to be working in groups to build a diorama. A diorama, that's a small scale of something, like a habitat. So it's going to be a small scale. We're going to use shoe boxes. The shoe boxes are going to be what is our little miniature area to work with, okay? We're going to research what you learned today. We're going to use one tablet per group, any books in the classroom, and anything that you've learned today in the lesson is what you're going to use, okay? Also, some of the materials that you can use: shoebox, markers, crayons, glue, scissors, construction paper, and anything in our craft box is up for grabs, okay? So make sure you share. You're going to draw animals, plants, and anything you need to develop your environments. And you'll be presenting this to the class. So you can have 40 minutes to work on your project, and then we'll come back together and do some presenting, okay? You need at least 2 animals. At least 2. If you could do more, if you have more time, do more. You're going to find as many, you're going to create as many land features. So you can cut up paper for snow, for example, okay? Or blue construction paper, make waves out of it somehow. You guys have to be creative here, okay? Now you're going to have a couple jobs to decide. You're going to have a materials manager, a recorder, a drawer, and 2 spokesperson for when we do the presentation. So everyone's going to have to be a part and contribute to the creating of this diorama, okay? And then your presentation will be sharing the different parts of your diorama, and then you're also going to tell us 2 cool facts that you found out today, okay? Whether it's what we've gone over for each of those habitats, or if it's something that you found in your tablets or in some of the books, okay? 2 cool facts. Again, 40 minutes. We're going to have the time manager start, but I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to show you a little example here of a student who made one of these before. Can anybody tell me what kind of habitat this is? Yep, that's right. It's the polar region. See some of the animals there? Penguins, you see an orca, you see some fish. These are all animals that could survive in this habitat. This is a really simple one. You're able to get as creative and detailed as you want, okay? I'm encouraging it. So I'm going to go ahead and have the time manager start the time in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, class. Perfect. We had some fun listening to the presentations. We've had some fun creating. We've had some fun learning some new vocabulary words. So now that we've done all this, let's see. Today's when you go home tonight is going to be to ask your family members, do dolphins have gills or lungs? I'm going to tell you the answer. The answer is down below too. Dolphins have lungs, if you can believe it. Even though they look like fish and they go swim through the water, they're mammals just like humans, so they have lungs. But let's see how many of your family members know that. Okay? Okay? And last but not least, let's go over what we're going to do tomorrow. We're going to do a review of the vocabulary words. We're going to journal what we learned today and what we liked from our habitat lesson. Then we're going to do a little writing. We're going to draw a made-up animal and where they live and what they eat. That's for tomorrow. So I will see you then, and you have a great day.